Cool.
and just kind of like growing with the game right now as far as how long it lasts and how long our interest stays in the game. Your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, what you were saying, the Easter eggy side of this whole podcast, I did recently get a PlayStation 4. You sound like you, for the first time, have had the ability to play video games on a PlayStation 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Both my
So
friend Tom and Nick have it, and I'm staying at their place, so I'm actually looking at it right now.
that's awesome. You want to start? Like, how have you been liking it? How's the next gen experience, next gen / current gen experience been treating you?
Um, I think it's fabulous, and I'm a little upset that I didn't buy one. But at the same time, I don't feel too bad because I'm pretty certain in 6 months they're going to release another PS4, maybe with a bigger hard drive, maybe that consumes less power. I'll be glad to have that one too. The first thing that jumps out to me is the PlayStation 4 controller is amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a subtle, iterative improvement over the PS3 controller, and I don't think they missed a beat. The joysticks feel better, the D-pad feels amazing, the button responsiveness is spectacular. They're a little bit crisper, at the same time they're a little bit more sensitive to analog depression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad to see the start and select buttons disappear. Those are an old holdover from back in the Nintendo days.
Yeah, real quick though, I know because we have the share button on the left and the options button on the right. In Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, which I'm playing right now, I didn't realize this, but both the left and the right side of that touchpad in the center act as like a left and right click. So Metal Gear teaches that or treats them as a start and select button.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I will say that on occasion, because Destiny relies on you hitting the options button pretty regularly, and sometimes that was tricky. Sometimes I felt like I had to press the button and it didn't respond. But it was pretty rare. It's just enough for me to notice it and remember it. I feel like the triggers feel fantastic.
Yeah.
They have just the right amount of pull to them without feeling flimsy. The PlayStation 3 and 2 kind of felt rounded in the wrong direction, and your fingers could slide off of them pretty easily. I remember hearing people complain about that, and I was like, I never had that issue when I was playing the PS3. But while playing the PS4, I could feel the difference.
Big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. So it was one of those things where I didn't realize just how broken it was until I found something better. And it's strange because it's not that I didn't play the 360, and the 360 had the proper roundness to it, but it had a similar sponginess, so maybe I just didn't notice.
Yeah.
That middle button is still a little weird for me, but it works. I mean, it's just strange because I'm not quite sure even they know what to do with it yet. It's cool that Metal Gear does the left and right tap for start and select, but I mean, it's been a long time since start and select have even been all that relevant. You know, on the NES, you had to use the select button to go through the menu.
I know.
You couldn't use the D-pad, and I think even on some games you could, and on the Super Nintendo, I'm pretty certain you didn't need it either. So start and select have been unnecessary for a really long time.
Yeah.
I'm just sad to see them go because I'm used to them.
Yeah. Go on.
Oh, so the controller's amazing, and I'm really happy with it. It might be difficult for me to go back to the PS3 controller, only because it's so much better.
Yeah. Can I piggyback you a little bit
absolutely.
real quick? So in regards to the what is it? Is it concave? The concave buttons. When I was playing Destiny the other day. I don't know if the game. For some reason, my hands were sweating, and I was on chat, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, my hands are so sweaty right now." I was like, "If I was using the PlayStation 3 controller, my thumbs would be sliding off right now, but they would catch the curves." It was awesome. I was still patting my hands off on my pants. The other thing is, some games have used like the touchpad and kind of, I guess, ways you'd expect, but they're kind of cool and appreciated. Like I was playing the Thief demo on here, and Thief does this thing where when you go into like a menu to choose like weapons and stuff like that, you can rub your finger across the touchpad to like just go and choose whatever weapon it is that you want from like a grid. It would be like in Destiny if you hovered over a weapon and could just with your finger slide and choose what weapon you wanted to choose. Like,
oh, that'd be really nice.
Yeah. The other thing that's cool, and I know that the Wii has had this ever since the Wii came out, is a little microphone in the controller.
Yes.
Metal Gear does some fun things with this where like when I set, like on the map, if I choose a location for like a helicopter to drop down and come pick me up or something like that, the little voice comes out of the microphone and it says like coordinates accepted, or stuff like that. And you could turn that on or turn it off, but I don't know. It's almost like a fourth dimension kind of thing, and I like it. And I know people were saying like on the Wii, like on Zelda, you'd like shoot arrows and hear them like whizzing by and stuff like that out of the microphone. I think stuff like that's cool. Another thing I like about the controller, obviously the share button's amazing. I have mine set right now, so I tap it, it takes a screenshot. I double tap it, it starts recording video, and then if I hold it down, that's where all my upload options are and stuff like that.
Very cool. And is that all programmable?
You can choose like whether the tap, double tap, and hold do for the share button.
Very cool.
And just the whole plugging in your headset to the controller.
Yes.
I know it's 360 had since its inception. Pairing Bluetooth on the PlayStation 3 for headsets was horrendous. Almost every single time I go online and chat on the PlayStation 3, it was pairing it up and seeing I was getting a signal and people not hearing me and turning my system off and back on, and suddenly it was working, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, okay. I didn't play online almost ever with my PlayStation 3,
okay.
But I was sent a Bluetooth headset, and then I moved by my friends here in San Francisco, and then I moved to San Francisco, so I'm now using his PlayStation, so I don't think it matters. The menu system is quite cool on the PlayStation 4. I like being able to bounce out of the game, do a few things in the system, and then bounce right back into the game. I don't have to quit. That's very handy. It's very smooth and still very reminiscent of the PS3. It's just and then some.
Yeah, it's better.
The fan seems a little loud, or maybe my friend's place was kind of loud or kind of hot, and it had to run pretty hard. But I could hear it pretty easily. Not necessarily over the game, but while it was charging the controller while the system was off, I could even hear it cooling down.
I'll have to listen for it. Like as of right now, I noticed the difference between when I'm running a disc in it and when I'm not. Like for example, I've got a DVD in there right now.
Your camera is now staring at your knees.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at my system. The system's like behind my computer. My computer's really loud right now, and my fan is going and whatnot. And I notice I hear the disc spinning noise on like the DVD because I notice it when it's like turned off. I think that like overall our bodies, like our ears, just kind of like cancel out those kinds of noises, and we don't pay attention to them. But when the disc stops spinning, I'm like, oh, the room is quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it wasn't like over the game loud, but I could notice it while the system was off or while it was in a quiet menu.
Yeah. One of the things I actually, and I think like many people, I kind of hate about the controller right now is I don't like the light bar. And I understand that since the system has first since the system first came out, they released an update that lets you choose the dimness of that controller light, and I have it turned all the way down to as dim as it gets. However, when I play games at nighttime in here, and like I don't have like horrible Mario syndrome where I play where I'm jumping and I'm moving the controller or anything like that. But when I move the controller a little bit, the light will bounce off the walls in here, which are painted like a very, very light tan color, and like I turn because I think I'm seeing something out of the peripheral vision of my eyes, and that's really distracting. People have been selling all sorts of like stickers and stuff like that you can put over the light bar. I just don't understand why we can't turn it off. I know, like
I don't understand why it's there in the first place.
Well, supposedly, you know how like the PlayStation Move controllers had that like little orb on there.
Mm-hmm.
It uses it for like motion tracking. Like I got the camera when we bought the system so that I could, as you've seen, do the live streams and whatnot. And so the system right now, the PlayStation camera, besides being like Kinect in that I can use, I can be like, PlayStation, like play Destiny or, close application. You can do like voice commands and stuff like that, which work pretty well. But the camera tracks that light. And so when you're playing like the motion games, it'll do stuff like attach characters and balloons and stuff to that light, and it actually tracks it really well with one-to-one. The other thing that I have set up right now also is that when I sit down in front of the TV and my PlayStation's on, it'll unlock the system by just like looking at my face. But what it does is it wants your face, and then it wants you to hold up the controller, and it'll show like a blue bar like on the screen. And so I match the blue bar of the light on the controller with the screen, and then it like unlocks.
Okay.
So it's little stuff, but you're right. Like overall, it's
it's interesting though, because like the Xbox doesn't need that. The Kinect works completely differently.
Oh, really?
As far as I know. As far as I understand, the Kinect, what it does is it throws out a series of, I don't know if it's infrared, but it's a non-visible light, and it just coats your room in dots. And what it does is it tracks the difference in distance in those dots, and it maps people. Have you ever seen, this is actually a really weird use of it, have you ever seen Paranormal Activity 4?
No. I saw the first one, and I was like,
I've seen them all. I'm not going to say that they're great movies, but I love the mythology.
Okay.
I love the narrative. Honestly, I would suggest reading the synopsis of each movie, like a really detailed synopsis, because it is really cool.
Okay.
The history of the family and the way that they are linked between the different movies and the different the mixed chronology of the movies is really, really interesting.
Okay.
And in the fourth movie, the family has an Xbox with a Kinect, and one of the scenes is actually seeing through the Kinect camera, quote unquote. And what it does is it coats the entire room in these green dots, and that shows how the Kinect actually tracks people. And it's no question that the Kinect is so accurate, because the room is coated in so many dots, you can see movement all across the room, and that was for the 360, and apparently the one for the Xbox One is like 2 or 4 times more sensitive, so it's probably putting out 4 times as many dots.
Interesting.
Light beams or something like that. And then the filmmakers use the Kinect's ability to track motion as a means to track a ghost.
Interesting.
And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant It's a brilliant and terrifying visual effect.
Okay.
And that's what's so interesting about the Paranormal Activity movies to me, is how good they are at changing the way that they reveal the paranormal in each movie. David Bordwell runs a blog, davidbordwell.com or something like that. He is a famous film historian and aesthetic study. He wrote the book that I used in my Aesthetics of Cinema class called Film Art. So he's a brilliant, really well-studied guy, and he and his wife Kristen run a blog site where now I think they're semi-retired, so they just talk about whatever they feel like talking about on their website, which is really fun. And one of them was Paranormal Activity, and the way that the movies progress each movie in kind of the gimmick that they use. The first movie is static camera. The second movie, the guy puts a camera on a fan, on a oscillating fan, so the camera then rotates left and right, and they reveal information as the camera pans left and right across the room. I forget what happens in 3, and 4 is webcam and this Kinect thing. And so it was just a really interesting study in the progression of the visual of the series, and then it incorporated video game technology, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And then proved how well it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, the way the Kinect works as opposed to the PlayStation camera is apparently the Kinect, which is why you can play without your controller, on the Xbox.
Yeah. I got a feeling that, like for example, with the PlayStation camera, I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that it's probably not as high tech of a piece of technology. It's got like some bells and whistles. Like there's 4 microphones on it. There's actually 2 cameras on it, which I don't know how many the Kinect has. And you can do things like for example, when you load up the playroom and like it fills the room with like little robots and stuff like that. You can do like you can like move them and push them, and so without having the light of the controller. It still will like track where your hands are and stuff like that, but I don't know how it works. I highly doubt it's doing something as sophisticated as, dotting the room versus knowing like solid object, touching, like relative space of solid object in video game, like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done much research on the way the PlayStation camera works, but from what I've read about the way the Kinect works, I think it's an it's an extremely advanced piece of hardware.
Yeah.
They were talking about being able to read heart rates with the Kinect camera and changes in body temperature, and
Oh wow.
yeah, it's sort of like you remember when they had like when the Wii had the little platform that you could stand on, the Wii board or
Yeah,
whatever.
the balance board. Yeah.
Yeah, the balance board, and they started using it in hospitals because it was more sensitive than some of their medical gear. Like the Kinect feels like it's in that same range where it's this extremely advanced piece of hardware that they decided to use as a toy, and other people are picking up on it and hacking it and figuring out that it can do so many other things. So it's another piece of hardware that Microsoft has developed that I think is completely underappreciated and that they have no idea how to sell.
Probably. I wonder if that's like, Xbox One. It seems like if you're gonna take the voice of the people, like people want it to be video game console first, television and other forms of entertainment, second and third and so on. And as a video games console, they couldn't nail making the Kinect work in a way that their core audience felt right or felt perfected. I guess like it was always like there was something very sloppy about the way that experience translated into gameplay and the control of gameplay.
Yeah, it's a really familiar problem with Microsoft.
Yeah.
We were talking about my Surface before the show.
Mm-hmm.
I love that thing, and like I said, I use it more and more, and it's still a flawed device, but I want it over an iPad any day, and I'm willing to pay the difference.
It's like
the Windows App Store is terrible. There aren't enough applications or enough good applications for it.
Yeah.
I've got Skype, which is amazing, but that's a Microsoft-owned program.
Right.
There's the Nook application, which is good. And there's no good YouTube app because Google and Microsoft are always at war. And that's a huge one. YouTube is a big part of mobile experience now.
Right.
It's actually easier to list the things that it doesn't have because all the major ones just aren't there. It's really lacking in the standard applications of our time. But its advantage is that it can run full programs.
Yeah,
I do that instead, and I don't need a Facebook app because I can just go to Facebook. But again, it's a great device that Microsoft has a really hard time supporting. The same goes for their phone. Like those Nokia Lumia phones are amazing. They're really well built. They're really slick. They're very responsive. The touchscreen is great. They have an amazing camera.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody wants to buy it because Windows 8 isn't anywhere near as popular as it could be because they botched the mobile thing. Kinect is the same way. They've got this incredible piece of technology, and they've got the billions of dollars to invest in the R&D to make it great, and they've got the smart guys to make a great piece of technology. They don't have anyone to make a good game for it. Microsoft just bought
Mojang
for $2.5 billion. Penny Arcade had a great comic on it where I think it was Gabe ran in the room. He's like, they're selling he's selling his baby for $2.5 billion, and Tycho's like, I would sell a literal baby for $2.5 billion. It's like there is very little that I wouldn't sell for $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
But what are they going to do with Minecraft?
They said they're gonna. One of the things they're going to do is put it on Windows Phone platforms.
Yay!
I know, right? There were enough.
All 50 people can play it.
Right. They were whatever plan they have in place. I'm pretty sure that they said that they're going to be able to recoup that cost by sometime in 2015.
I read April 2016. They
expect
to recoup $2.5 billion by April 2016.
Well,
I don't see it happening, but I'm not in charge of a company like that. But the thing is, Microsoft is capable of making good hardware, and they've been prohibited from doing so because of their antitrust thing for so long, and the Surface was supposed to be like their big foray back into it. And it's a great device, but man, I mean, they don't know how to advertise. It was really in vogue to hate Microsoft for a long time. It still kind of is. Google and Apple are everybody's baby at the moment. So Microsoft is sort of shuffled off to the side, but at the same time, Microsoft introduced the Xbox, which really changed the course of console gaming.
Yeah.
And so it's really clear that they're capable of doing something great in this area.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about all the first-party games that Microsoft has for their platform.
Wait, what?
All of them. Well, think of the first-party games that they have. Like, what are they? What is the Xbox system seller?
Halo?
And Bungie's not even making Halo anymore.
Yeah.
They bought it away from Bungie. You know? And what are they going to do? That's a 14-year-old game.
Yeah.
Like what do they have? Like
they bought Gears of War.
They bought Gears of War, and when was the last relevant Gears of War game?
Yeah.
I don't know what they expect to do. Also, my friend was pointing out how many games have they released for Xbox One versus how many games have they released for PlayStation 4.
Yeah, they've they bought the rights to that, or the exclusive distribution rights or something like that to Sunset Overdrive, the Insomniac game.
Right, and the semi-exclusive distribution rights for Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
But none of that's either permanent or a system seller. It's just, I mean, they've got the right hardware. And also, Microsoft made a huge mistake by trying to force it on people as well, the Kinect,
Yeah.
And now buy an Xbox One that doesn't come with the Kinect. It just felt like they were shoving it down their throat. And even if they were right, even if, the Kinect is a great piece of technology, they don't have any reason to use it.
Yeah. That's the thing that's got to be scary about running like a big multi-billion-dollar company and whatnot is nowadays with the power of the internet and Twitter and Facebook and all this stuff and public opinions, they get a lot more feedback on a much more regular and like large scale and stuff like that. If you tick off a large enough amount of people, it's like it becomes like a PR disaster overnight, and they didn't have to worry about things like that before. Back in the days when we were still reading Electronic Gaming Monthly and stuff like that, if technology would have been at a point where the Kinect Xbox One digital distribution only model would have existed, I don't know if enough people could have pooled together enough snail mail, in time to prevent something like that from happening. And now it's, you're Microsoft and you unveil that, and then you're Sony and you have time to react to that. It's kind of like the scales tip so fast and so frequently. It's got to be terrifying to be on.
And Microsoft's not been any good at reacting because they're so used to leading, or not even leading so much as just like being at the front anyway.
Yeah, I kind of feel, I don't want to say bad's the word, unfortunate for them that for whatever reason, because of the E3 scheduling every single year, they go fast. I feel like every single year that puts like Sony in this position to react instead of have to act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and Microsoft has done so many things right with their video game systems. The Xbox had the built-in hard drive.
Yeah.
They had the really long cord for the cable, or for the controller. And
Which
they also had
broke
the breakaway
off.
cable.
Yeah.
It was huge. That made such a big difference, especially when you're playing Halo and your dog runs across the room. And not only that, but it would break the cable and then it would pause the game so that you could reconnect the cable.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. It had internet connectivity at a time when that mattered. Dreamcast had it too, but it was way ahead of its time. It was bad timing.
Yeah, and in regards to their internet connectivity, having it be broadband only was one of those things that they put their foot down on. I remember there was an interview.
And then people started demanding broadband.
Yeah, where Microsoft said in regards to that, they said something along the lines of, just because you can eat pizza through a straw, just because you can, doesn't mean that like you should or you will want to or it's efficient. And that was
Yeah, there was a strong vision for the Xbox, and they nailed it. And then they unveiled Xbox Live, and there was a strong vision for Xbox Live, and they nailed it. And then honestly, they came out with the 360, and the 360 was a piece of junk in terms of hardware. But their software for the first time was banging on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Xbox Live came into its own and revolutionized console gaming the second the 360 hit the market.
Yeah.
And their controller was perfect. People argued that the beefy Duke controller for the Xbox was too ridiculous. I loved it, but I understand, like, having 2 loaves of bread with sticks in them was a little strange. But yeah, then they refined their controller. The Red Ring of Death was a huge problem. But, the 360 had games, it had a great controller, and it had a unique online experience that you couldn't get anywhere else. I mean, they were running the game at the time, and the PlayStation 3 was so far behind. It was a giant system. It was $200 to $300 overpriced. They had no games. They had minimal online activity.
Technology that developers didn't know how to program for, whether they were in-house or third-party.
Yeah, and no matter how powerful it was, and it was really powerful, like people didn't know how to program for it.
Yeah.
And it took them years to figure it out. And the PS3 ended really strong, and the Xbox 360 ended pretty weak. But it made it pretty clear that Microsoft had also lost track of their vision for video games when they came out with all of those ridiculous restrictions for the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Must be connected to the internet, can't share games, must buy a Kinect. That was silly. And that was clearly, because if anybody had asked the question, how does this benefit the gamer, everyone would have gone,
Yeah, like the most non-consumer friendly, I don't even know what the word is for that, like system that they had ever conceived.
Yeah. And they made the right decision. They removed all those restrictions, and the Xbox One became on par with the PlayStation, but the problem was that they don't have games.
Yeah.
And they lost quite a few people with those, quite a lot of momentum with those restrictions, because now people go, is Microsoft really thinking about the gaming experience, or are they thinking about protecting their developers? And I don't even think there's those things that developers cared about. There is some concern about borrowing games and renting games taking away revenue, but people have been renting games for a really long time, and the game industry has been fine.
Yeah, I think even still, now that the systems have been out for about a year or so, Destiny's launch on the PlayStation 4 was like the biggest, like the highest selling game that has released on the console yet. And I think during that week this past week that Destiny was out, that its PS4 still outsold Xbox One 2-1, despite the game being on both systems.
Yeah, PS4 sales have dwarfed Xbox One sales.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it'll be I'm gonna cut us off here for a second, only because it's getting dark outside and I hear the thunder rumbling in, and I'm afraid that we're just gonna get cut off anyways.
Oh, okay.
And I want to make sure that I don't know what happens, like if the broadcast gets cut off, if like it'll still render and upload and process on YouTube, and I don't want to lose this 3 hours.
Yeah, that's fine. Also, it's been 3 hours. We should stop.
Yeah, and it's been 3 hours. I'll let you know if I am gonna somehow cut off the end of that Destiny one.
Okay.
And make this like a separate half hour, only because I don't want people to necessarily look at it and be like, holy crap, 3 hours. Like, even though, holy crap, 2.5 hours. I'm not sure it matters at that point.
You know what might be a good idea is if you annotate it or put a table of contents.
Oh, okay.
You can say, at this mark we discuss this. At this mark we discuss this. At this mark we discuss this.
Yeah,
that might
so
help.
Long, I should do that.
Yeah, it might help it be more digestible at that point.
You're right. It's a good idea.
And you can say, special ending, or cool off ending.
Good call. Yeah, you're right. I'll keep it as one thing then. You're right. I'll annotate it that way people can fast forward. That way people who know the history and followed the alpha and beta and stuff like that don't need us to hear us blab on about how we didn't engage in any of that stuff. Okay, cool. So then let's man, it's crazy out there right now.
Nice.
Let's close out right here.
Cool.
All right. So for 30nerdy.com, I am Matt. You can reach me on Twitter at 30andnerdy. We also have Facebook.com/30andnerdy. We have our Guardians Section 9 Facebook group, which you are welcome to join on there. Now we have Guardian Section 9 Destiny Clan. I probably won't say that every single time, but since this was initially the Destiny review-ish podcast and whatnot, there's all that stuff. And across from me,
I am Scott William Hannon, SW Hannon on Twitter, and I'm all over Facebook and Instagram as well.
Oh, that's right, Instagram. We're on there. We only do. We're trying to ramp up all that kind of stuff, man. We're trying to like I said, keep this 30 and nerdy thing under control. You know, for just the few of us doing it, oh man, it's so hard to balance. But anyways, this has been really, really fun talking games and Destiny and whatnot. So thank you for your 3 hours. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, cool. Good luck in San Francisco. Well, I have to do that San Fran podcast really, really soon. Okay.
No problem.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you. Have an awesome weekend.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye. Bye, everyone.